Okay, somebody asked me, is failure to cite ineffective assistance of counsel contempt of court? Yes, it is, and yes, it isn't. Okay, here it says no. The failure to cite ineffective assistance of counsel is not contempt of court. Contempt of court involves willful disobedience of a court order, disruptive behavior, or actions that obstruct the administration of justice. Okay, now that will depend on what you base your claim of ineffective assistance to counsel. So if you cite violations of the rules of professional conduct, you're in like Flint. So it's hard. It'd be difficult for any lawyer to prove effective assistance to counsel, if they violated the rules of professional conduct. That's how you win. Okay, and it'll tell you the same thing I was asked about is failure to report judicial misconduct, contempt of court. It'll say no, but see, in the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, reporting misconduct is mandatory. So when you violate one rule, you violate multiple rules. Even when you violate one rule, failure to communication is a rule, which is a law. One must communicate with the client of all aspects, the case and how they're going, and give them all the information they need, right? So failure to communicate is a lack of diligence. Diligence is a law, a rule in the rule of professional conduct, all right? Failure to be, because being diligent would be competent. Competent is a rule of law. All lawyers must act in a competent manner, and that involves abiding by the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, and specifically reporting any misconduct, anybody's failure to abide by the rules of the codes. And but see, it's hard to beat a case on ineffective assistance of counsel if you aren't citing the violations of the rules and the codes. And you got to cite violations of the rules of the codes against not just your attorney, but the opposing party, whether it be the state's attorney or the attorney in child court or whoever, the opposing party. Okay, and you got to cite the judge for judicial misconduct. Okay, but actually, that's the judge's job. That would be candid towards the tribunal. I mean, how is the tribunal already knows that this isn't happening. Nobody's playing by the rules or the codes, and nobody's citing each other. So that's what makes a conspiracy. See, they don't even consider it again. It's not a felony, But this is deprivation of rights. So if you cite deprivation of rights, okay, let's go there. Deprivation of rights, especially under U.S. law 18 U.S.C., refers to a government official or person acting under the color of law, willfully violating someone's constitutional right. That's effective assistance of counsel. That means everybody in that courtroom abiding by, enforcing, and reporting any violations in the rules of the codes. Okay? So how could that not be against the law? How could that not be against the law? Nobody's saying that in court. I mean, this is what they're doing to lock you up. This is what they're doing to take your kids away, your home away. This is what they're doing to take away, your life away. Put you in prison or, and that's deprivation of rights. So nobody's abiding by the law in the court of law to put you what you're going through. So it's against the law if you know what laws you're using. Okay, so just saying your lawyer didn't present this evidence, that evidence, they're going to say, well, he made a mistake. But when you say your lawyer violated this rule, that rule, this rule, that rule, and then you start citing the preamble and throwing some of the examples from the scope, they're squashed, they're done. Okay, but you also got to cite the opposing party for not reporting your attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel, because your attorney would have never got away with any of that buffoonery if the opposing party didn't allow it. It's the opposing party's job and the judge's job to make sure that your attorney doesn't violate the rules of professional conduct. That's the whole reason they have the rules of professional conduct in the Code of Judicial Conduct. Reporting misconduct is mandatory, and both the failure to report is misconduct. So everybody, you can cite everybody for deprivation of rights, and since nobody ratted each other out, nobody pulled a Serpico, lived up to the oath and ratted these evildoers out, that leads to a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Okay. Where is it? I just had it. Okay. See, this is it. Privation of rights. I already went under that. Okay. Okay. Is failure to report a conspiracy against rights under the color of law a crime? That's all I put. Okay. I know that. That's a crime. And I was talking to these wonderful people. It made me feel really proud because I got through to them about this. And the last post I made, very short one, where I threw 3 paragraphs, opens and closes the door, and made a whole lot of sense to them. And that's because they've been going over all the laws I was throwing out there and then condensed them into 3 paragraphs. All right. So is failure to report a conspiracy against rights under the color of law a crime? Yes, conspiracy against rights under the law 18 U.S.C. 241 and the privation of rights under the color of law are federal crimes. So, in order to get the conspiracy against rights under the color of law, there had to be 2 or more people involved, which there always is. So that's a conspiracy of deprivation of rights. They all agreed, you don't need effective assistance of counsel. They all agreed you don't need a fair trial. They all agreed you don't need due process. They all agreed you don't need a quick and speedy trial. They all agreed they don't have to abide by the letter of law. They all agreed that the rule of law don't stand in a court of law because in that court, the judge is king. No law is applied to that judge. And that honor extends to the justers. Your ineffective assistance of counsel and the opposing party. They all think they're above the law. That's because nobody's reporting each other for breaking the law, and everybody's supposed to report each other. So, this part was what my whole point was, that whatever court you're in, no matter what you're going through, yes, there's a conspiracy against rights under the color of law and deprivation of rights under the color of law, and these are federal crimes, often involving government officials acting unlawfully and potential penalties for fines to life imprisonment or death, depending on the severity and outcome. But these statutes focus on the perpetrator's action, not generally on third-party failure to report. Through reporting is crucial for investigation and justice. That's what I'm talking about. And they finally understood what I'm doing. Getting everybody constitutionally correct in a court of law. That's all. That's why this is an apolitical thing, because if you look up a judge on the internet, beside their name, they'll have that little thing that says Republican or Democrat, conservative, If you go through the Code of Judicial Conduct, it'll explain to you judges are supposed to be apolitical, and you can't bring politically involved cases into the court and come in there with innuendo. You have to have probable cause. You have some type of evidence. You just can't come in there, throwing out conspiracy theories. The law covers a conspiracy against rights, makes it a felony for two or more people to conspire to injure, threaten, or intimidate someone in the exercise of their federal rights. And I got put to death trying to exercise my right to effective assistance of counsel. And I was going to extend the rules and the codes to everybody in that courtroom and legally hold them to the oath they took, which requires all of them to report each other and themselves for violating the rules and the codes. But my lawyer told on me before I could get out in the courtroom, and the judge sent in the executioner. I was in custody at the time. So I'm lucky I'm here to tell this story. And to tell you so much. But see, I've been at this already for like 10 years. They've finally got something to ring me in and take me down. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm still around, and and I'm still doing what I'm doing. Trying to teach you people what you're living with under the color of law. You're living under the color of law. Look it up. Under the color of law. And I was explaining to a young lady, I explained to a lot of people that, if it seems illogical, it's illegal. Remember, all laws created must be in the public interest. Look up, I did a video on that, the legalities of doing what's in the public interest, and that's a requirement of all public servants, lawyers, judges, politicians, police, anybody in the military, etc., 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 okay? So it says about the rights protected by the Constitution or federal laws while acting under color of law, even if exceeding authority. So under the color of law, that's all that means. Exceeding their authority, abuse of authority, just making up shit to lock you up. And then you gotta, prove your way up. When it comes to lawyers, the code of silence is stronger than that than the police department. Who's covered? These laws target individuals, including government officials, who use their power and violate civil rights. Like right now, a lot of people are being deprived of their right to due process. That's deprivation of rights, and there's two or more people involved, so it's thus creating conspiracy against rights under the color of law. And a lot of people say, hey, well, I was just doing my job, taking orders, but that doesn't apply. That's not a defense. I did a video on that. Giving unlawful orders. It's illegal for anybody to give unlawful orders, just as as anybody in public service. It's their legal right as well as obligation to refuse to take unlawful orders, because they can and will be charged accordingly, regardless if they were doing their job, they didn't want to lose their job. There's no excuse for breaking the law. You can't say, well, the judge told me to do this, the mayor told me, the governor, the captain of police, the president. No, you can't say, oh, I could have lost my job. You're still going to face the consequences. You're guilty as just as fuck as the fucker giving the unlawful orders. However, reporting such crimes is essential for the FBI and the DOJ to investigate and prosecute, as these are criminal statutes enforced by the government and not private lawsuits. Key takeaway: while failing to report isn't typically a separate federal crime in these specific statutes, it's a conspiracy and deprivation of rights by officials or others acting with them that are punishable offenses, making reporting vital for upholding the law. So what you think is illegal they may tell you is illegal, but actually it's not until you dig deeper. And that's what I'm teaching you. Okay, so yes, reporting misconduct is mandatory in a court of law. If your lawyer is violating the rules of professional conduct, you can literally walk into court and tell the judge, hey, you need to cite my attorney for ineffective assistance of counsel, for failure to abide by the rules. And you're going to state which rules they violated and how they violated them. And then you're going to turn around and tell the judge and the opposing party for failure to report misconduct, because reporting misconduct is mandatory. Failure to report misconduct is misconduct. That's failure to expedite litigation, which is a lack of diligence. That's a lack of competence, which is totally incompetent. And yet alone, nobody reported you for judicial misconduct, for failure to report anybody and everybody, for multiple violations of the rules of professional conduct, yourself for judicial misconduct. So you can go on and on when it, and I've been through it a couple of times. Like I said, that one lawyer told the judge and I got it executed. But there were other times where the lawyers told on me that I had the rules and the codes, and them knowing I had that, they had to know what I was going to do with it. Anyways, they went and told the judge, and they capitulated. It's quite easy for them to capitulate. So if you go to court, you got a case, you got an issue going on in any court, and you got a lawyer, and if your lawyer hasn't sat down and talked to you about the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, legal responsibilities of all lawyers and judges to everybody in a court of law, not just you in general, not just the defendant, but the plaintiffs and the public in general. Okay, it's in the public interest. That's a mandatory of the public interest. Public trial. Somebody was complaining about how the judge closed the courts, didn't want people in there. Listening to him cite the judges and the lawyers for this conspiracy against rights under the color of law in the very courtroom that it's happening. So yes, the judge is in contempt of court for failure to report all this misconduct. If you cite a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. But see, I can't guarantee you that they'll even pay attention or listen to you, Because in that courtroom, the judge is king or queen. You know, pretty much like your politicians, your governors, your mayors. Try to talk to them, they talk down to you. No, these are public servants. I strongly suggest you look up the oath of public service. Some people will say, no, that's not my oath of office. There's the oath of public service, and then there's their oath of office. The oath of public service applies to all public servants. And then each office has their own particular oath. Okay, people, thank you and good night. I just thought you needed to know why I've been pushing all of you with my videos about this conspiracy against rights under the color of law, because that's a definite win, okay? People were trying to tell me about their stories, their cases, you know, their proof, you know, of all these things. I kept trying. You didn't need all that. Let me show you here. Where is it? It's right there. That's all you need to say. Slap that on all your complaint forms, you know, to the DOJ, the FBI, conspiracy against rights under the color of law complaint. It tells you everything. What I told you, the judge failed to report my counsel and the opposing party for multiple counts of misconduct, etc., etc., etc. Then it gets down to the law, conspiracy against rights under the color of law, prohibits the willful deprivation of rights, which they did. That was the willful deprivation of rights. So privileges or immunities under the color of the law are null and void. Prohibits conspiracy to injure, oppress, threaten, intimidate any person in free exercise and enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution and laws of the United States, and giving me a death sentence. Well, man, that's far above and beyond violating the oath. It's not only unconstitutional, that's treason, that's high treason. You know, and it wasn't just because it just happened to me, or it's just happening to me. It's happening to everybody, everywhere. Sure, you may not have gotten the death penalty, but some of y'all, I talk to you, and you tell me how you're feeling, and it hurts. But I'm giving you an answer right here. So in the end, I trust you will live up to the oath and show competence. I'm using the rules of professional conduct against them, okay? I trust you will live up to the oath and show competence, diligence, and expedited litigation, as I have meritorious claims and contention. So I strongly suggest reporting professional misconduct and maintaining the integrity of the profession. I trust communication will be made for ethical violations and every penalty will be imposed. In the public interest, that's law, as trustees, which they are trustees of the public trust, we look up the public trust. This is how to maintain the public trust. Failure to do so would add to this conspiracy against rights under the color of law. So if they don't act, they could face the whole penalties. And remember, there's a limitation on how long they have to answer you. You know, they can't be taking no months and years. I think it's 30 days. You know, but they won't pay attention. Anyways, failure to do so would add to this conspiracy against rights under the color of law. An interest of justice dismissal with prejudice is legally required, as in citing the RICO Act. Okay, an interest of justice dismissal with prejudice just means they're going to throw out the case, and with prejudice means they can't bring it back again under no circumstances. They got to leave you alone. And even if they try, you could throw the double jeopardy clause at them. What the hell? You're going to bring a case against me where I prove that you lied from the very beginning? You broke every law in the court of law to make me look guilty? Now you're going to try it again? That's violating the double jeopardy clause. You can't try me twice for the same crime. You mongoloid? Is you crazy? I don't mean nothing about the Mongolians, no. I like these guys, the Mongolian Jingle Bells. Okay, so, there you go. I mean, if this were war, and it's a war in the courtroom. It's a war against we the people by your dishonorable public servants. And I combine a bunch of weapons of mass destruction and, laws. It's a combination of a whole bunch of laws. It's a whole bunch of laws that I just threw together, okay? So that's how you tell them, do your job. I had a really long version. I remember one time I read it to my dad, and he called it the hand of God. And he says, that's like smacking him with the hand of God. This is a short version of what I wrote, but still quite effective, improving not just the ineffective assistance of counsel, but the ineffectiveness of the court itself. Okay, nothing but love for you people. I also put this on my page, Legal Reform. So, I mean, you don't have to, get all friendly with me. You don't have to send me friend requests. Okay, this is my page, Legal Reform. My personal page is just like, where I put stuff together, ideas, and then I put it here. Okay. This is what I was just showing you. Explaining deprivation of rights under the color of law. See, this is just me, instead of you opening, it's like a dictionary. Instead of you opening the dictionary and looking for the definition of these laws, these legal terms, I look it up and read it to you, that's all. I'm just reading it to you, okay? So you could just take this and Google it or, whatever, search it and look it up yourself. I'm discussing the RICO Act. You could use the RICO Act, That's what a conspiracy against rights on the color of law is all about, mob action. Often I've had people get upset with me when I state something and say in the public interest, or I would say in the public interest, of course. Now, if you look up legal obligations to act in the public interest, this is what you will find. Legal obligations to act in the public interest primarily fall on public officials and fiduciaries, requiring them to serve the common good over private gain, maintain impartiality, ensure accountability, and protect public resources enforced through ethics laws. Remember, violating the oath, any laws, ethics violations, conflicts of interest rules, or professional codes, like the Code of Judicial Conduct, the rules of professional conduct, with violations leading to serious consequences. Lawyers, prosecutors, and government employees all have special duties rooted in concepts like fiduciary. Okay, I talk about a lot of stuff. I talk a lot. But everything I post here is the legal obligations of your public servants. This is what's behind the oath. A lot of stuff that's not getting done that I've been trying to get did for a long time, and I need your help. So
you can kick rocks if you don't like how I talk. I'm gonna keep on talking and walk my walk. Ain't changing my tone, ain't changing my song. I was born this way, been loud too long. You
can. I do. I get a little angry when somebody tries explaining the law to me and not realizing I know the penalties for violating the letter of the law as well as disinformation. You know, why people, they get mad. I say, you sound stupid. What are you, an idiot? That ain't what the law says. Well, you don't understand the law. I said, no, then explain to me, what are the penalties for violating the letter of the law? What are the penalties for disinformation? Are you a lawyer? Are you familiar with the rules of professional conduct? And they get dumb. Like dumber than a box of rocks. And this guy, he said they do hold you to the same legal responsibilities of a lawyer, but they didn't hold any of his lawyers responsible, for the rules of professional conduct, the opposing party, the code of judicial conduct. Nothing counted for judges or lawyers, but now they're holding him responsible. I said, that, my friend, is denying you a fair trial. It says no matter where you turn in a court of law, they're forcing it into a pro se position because what? The lawyers decided, hey, I'm not going to do what I took the oath to do. I'm going to do what's in my best interest. No, that's not how the law works. But so the judge isn't holding the lawyers that were working for him or against him to the rules of professional conduct and the legal responsibilities of any legal learned professional. What they're holding him to it? That's definitely not a fair trial. That's not due process. Okay, so stop by and give it a look. Okay, due process, legal reform doesn't cost you anything but your time. You don't have to join. And as far as talking to me, just watch the videos. Because every time one of you talk to me, I always wind up quoting one of my videos, quoting something I've already talked about, all you got to do is look at the titles, and that'll tell you what I'm talking about in the videos, those laws, and the penalties for violating those laws. Okay, you're not educated enough. You don't have the ability to give informed consent, and I'm doing my best possible to give you the reasonable information and make an informed decision to give that informed consent. And that reasonable knowledge is the legal knowledge of a legal learned professional. Those you're competing up against in a court of law. Your lawyer, the opposing party, the judge. You seriously have no idea what you're up against. And I'm doing my best to show you, to guide you. The court's a dark room, the darkest you'll ever find. But in the darkest rooms, even a candle can help you find your way. And whatever you learn, please, don't keep it to yourself. Teach your friends, your neighbors, your kids, your mom, your dad, your sisters, your brothers, your nieces, your nephews. Talk about the public trust doctrine. Talk about their trust fund, the public trust doctrine. Try to teach them who they are. Listen, if I started on the path of finding out what due process is, Didn't take me that long, I'll be honest with you. I know more people. I know people that spent more years in law school and learned less than what I did in a longer amount of time. But see, I just go by the law. I don't try to manipulate it. You know, I won't violate the letter of the law. I'm doing my best to be as honest as possible with you.